Oh, I think we're going to beat them. I think we're going to beat them.
Well,
but we're not so sure.
no comment in there. Well, we'll see that. Thank you very much,
Sure,
Mr. President. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next morning, it's back to work at State House. And he will need a clear head this morning. It's Cabinet Day. This may sound like a noisy classroom, but this is high drama being played. These are the movers and shakers of the Gambian state, the members of the Cabinet. Facts, statistics, projections, recommendations and arguments. Yes, arguments, because in the Gambia, democracy begins at this level, called One Now.
Yes, even in the cabinet that assigned to them by the president, and they all formulate their policies in the ministries and departments, and in cabinet, the member of cabinet would express his views, his or her views, on any matter that comes for discussion. We now have 4 opposition parties. We have the Organization for Independence, the PDOIS. We also have the UP, the United Party, still in existence. Yes, screaming.
That has won the last 5 general elections in the Gambia with Sir Dawda Jawara as its leader. What message does he and his colleagues give?
We always repeat the principles and the aims and objects for which we would conduct the affairs of this country to the benefit of the people. And I think this has repeatedly been endorsed, and programmed at any general election would have meant a change of government.
With only 6 seats in Parliament, the opposition is largely outnumbered. Does that not make the proceedings in Parliament boring or predictable?
It is a reflection of the wishes of the number of seats. The debates are very free indeed. If we have a predominant a reflection of the wishes of the electorate, and political parties are all seek their support, and the membership of Parliament is a reflection.
Some African governments have been resisting the call for the introduction of a multi-party democracy on the grounds that it doesn't conform any currency here.
No, I do not subscribe to that argument that Africa, I do not subscribe to that. All along we have been, our policy in the PPP has been that of a multi-party democracy, and we have society, and by extension I think it is correct for African societies everywhere that people should be free to express whichever political party they wish.
One person who was given his first taste of democracy, his name, Sarah Jangha.
Long before I came here as Secretary General, probably about 21, and who won a scholarship, of course, to go to university. But that kind of situation, I was a bit worried about my scholarship. And at the same time, I had a mandate from my union to lead this strike. This fellowship I won still retained, even though I am on strike. And he told me, well, the two are different. He has a good look for him, but the strike is his right. So I was surprised then, in the context of Africa, that you can go on strike, apply for a scholarship, win, strike.
So long in power.
He's very patient, yes, very patient, and he does not feel that with his government, with his leadership, comfortable in the sense that they feel that they can challenge his optimize. It's an open society. He believes in the democracy, in the real sense of the word. And people believe too.
National salute! Please stand up!
Swing away from democracy and other disciplines that have encouraged progress. They should enlighten those who have been taught to see Africa as the home of helpless dependents, hopeless dictators, massive disasters, and deep depression. They will surely hope that the Dauda drive will continue to do to the In the 1960s, a wave of optimism swept across the African continent as one by one, nations that were once under European colonial rule set off on the march to... By the middle of the 1970s, Africa had turned into a rush of dictatorships, one-party states, or military governments, % or more of the poll. The people had been silenced, their economies on the road to ruin balanced. This was an era of Cold War politics. They were competing for friends. And to criticize or act could have cost them dearly. Africa's leaders prospered, Africa's people suffered, Africa's image abroad of the day. The Cold War was fought with ferocity on the African battlefield. Natural disasters compounded the mess, but among the small group that resisted the totalitarian temptation was Africa's smallest country, the Gambia. And they are happy they did. When Britain gave the first hint it was going to pull out of the Gambia, this man, Dauda Kairaba Jawara, was a veterinary doctor. Many people must have wondered then why a vet would want to take on this thankless and complicated species, human beings.
Yes, at the time I was very devoted to my work. Rinderpest and contagious bovine pneumonia were rampant, not only in the Gambia but throughout the continent. But when the call came, it posed a challenge. In the late 50s, as you know, there was a movement throughout Africa rebelling against colonialism towards independence, and the Gambia was a new political party was formed, and I was invited, which is the PPP, and I was invited to lead it.
Dawda Jawara has often escaped being defeated in elections by the skin of his teeth and ensured that even at party level, standards of democratic behavior are strictly maintained. When those standards are in danger of being sidestepped by ambitious party activists, he bangs the drum with a stern warning like this one delivered at the party congress.
The people should be allowed to decide freely. It would be wrong for the party elite to hide behind the party's name and prestige and seek to manipulate the democratic process of selecting candidates.
Has had an unbroken spell of 3 decades as head of state in the Gambia. In terms of staying power, you are the longest surviving leader of a democracy in the 20th century.
To the decision of our electorate, here we have a multi-party democracy, and our voting system is free and very fair, and I think it is, one can even say it is the will of the majority.
Its typical feature, the Gambia River, takes the landmass on both sides of it meandering into the heartland of West Africa. But because it was so small compared to other countries in Africa, a viable country, there were, for example, no known mineral resources. Wildlife was sparse. Only groundnuts were its essential income earner. Certainly, the ride ahead would be nothing like this trip along the peaceful Gambia River. And this? Hospitable, and disciplined. One of the biggest beneficiaries of aid from the European community. Their representative here in the Gambia is Alan Wadhams.
In applying these funds, we go through a series of criteria. Firstly, we consider whether, which is not in a position to receive any assistance at all.
Why?
But because for its political disturbances and inability to implement anything effectively, one could do nothing except perhaps possibly humanitarian aid in that instance. The political concern, and it features in the Lomé Convention itself, which all parties sign. If a country performs well, then more funds are obviously reaching their objective. If a country does badly, and there are many countries who have a very poor performance in disbursement and utilization of aid funds, then we can speak very highly of the Gambia. Aid disbursement is extremely rapid, and efficiency of aid is also high, and consequently it does better because it consumes more aid funds.
We will go, completely in accordance with our agreement under the program.
Not long after Sehu Sabali took over the economy, some hard decisions had to be made. An economic recovery printing the government's subsidy on the staple food rice, which could put up the price dramatically. A recipe for civil strife, or in a democratic system, defeat for the government in the next elections.
Rice is the basic commodity in this country. And when we started the program, we had to reduce the substantial subsidy that was put on rice. And we had prepared the contingency plans by, getting the cooperation of the United States of America in the form of a PL-480 rise, which came and played the role of a contingency consignment. The other area was the retrenchment that we have carried out in order to reduce the size of the civil service. As you know, in Africa, every employed person, has the responsibility of maybe feeding some 3, 4, 5 people, and to face somebody and say, I'm going to terminate you, is quite a difficult area. But fortunately, we have carried out this retrenchment without tears by retraining the people, creating some credit facilities. The whole scheme was so successful that people, in fact, were lobbying at one time to be retrenched because they found that they were better retrenched, their entitlements paid to them, some credit facilities given to them, and then they go into the private sector, earning a lot more than what they were earning in the government.
With an abundance of food in a country with a prolific, they should keep their minds off the humans. After all, the Gambia has a small population of just under 1 million. How do you build on the kind of economic achievement that the Gambia has had to encourage foreign investors already there to stay? But they have to attract new ones too. So the policies are changing to meet that objective. The terms are favorable. They have to be. Otherwise, like Charlie, the main attraction here, the investor would calmly contemplate the poor climate.
Our program at any general election would have meant a change of government. Any general election would have meant a change of government.
Live from Banjul, and a warm welcome to this special edition that is dedicated to remembering the former President of the Republic of the Gambia, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Well, it's exactly 1 year since the Gambia woke up to the loss of Jawara. Well, the elder statesman died this day on August the 27th, 2019, at the age of 95. Sir Dawda lived a storied life of hard work and honesty, carving a great legacy of socio-political achievements that set the scene for the country's journey from colonialism to self-rule. Well, globally renowned as a diplomat, peace lover, environmentalist, and gentleman of the highest order, President Jawara's endearing, candid, and all-embracing character won him numerous friends around the world, with Queen Elizabeth II knighting him in 1970s. Well, under this appealing nature was an ardent negotiator whose keen focus on the country's quest for self-determination brought us independence in 1965. Politically perspective, versely tolerant and open-minded, the elder statesman embodied the very picture of progressive culture, orienting the new nation via sound democratic ideals, which he promoted to the very end. Let's take a walk back in time to revisit this storied legacy with our special guest here with me in the studio. Well, one of them is Honorable Omar Jallow, or Omar Amadou Jallow. He is a former Minister of Agriculture under President Jawara and close ally of the elder statesman. Well, in a moment, Hassum Cisse, renowned historian and head of National Center for Arts and Culture, will be joining us in the studio to talk about the late President Jawara. And also live with me in the studio is Aliu Jawara. Well, Aliu is the son of President Jawara. And of course, they're here to look back at the life of the elder statesman and former President Jawara, who was a lot of things to many people from family, country to the world, Sir Dauda's impact and character imprints a remarkable mark that makes him greatly endearing. Well, with me, like I said, is the two gentlemen, and Hassan will be joining us in a moment. Good afternoon, Honorable OJ and Aliu, and welcome to this special edition that is designed to look or remember the late Sir Dauda.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your calling us here, and for the Director General and all the staffs of the GRTS. We thank you very much for this program to pay tribute and homage to the founding father of our nation.
Thank you for taking time to join us. Okay, Ali, it's good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good.
And just a small correction. I am son of Sir Dauda's elder brother Basadi.
Right.
From the same mom and dad.
All right, we'll take note of that. Thank you so much for that. And OJ, I will start with you, Honorable.
Yes, sir.
Aside this that's been said, you've worked with the late Sir Dauda. You served as one-time minister with him. But not only that, you've been a close ally to him. Aside this that we've just said, what else can you tell us about the late Sir Dauda?
Fortunately, I think I have to go back to my relations with him, that Sir Dauda appointed me as foreign parliamentary secretary at the Ministry of External Affairs. That's more or less the deputy foreign minister when I was 30 years old in 1977.
When you were just 30?
That's right. And then from there, people talk about my job as the Minister of Agriculture. Sir Dauda gave me a big responsibility in 1981 to establish the Ministry of Water Resources, Fisheries, Forestry and the Environment, which I led as a minister from 1981 to 89. It was in 89 that Sir Dauda moved me to agriculture to take over from Sewu Sabali when Sewu Sabali was moved to Minister of Finance. So I've worked with Sir Dauda for many, many years. And as I said, he was one person that I think all African leaders should try to emulate him for his humility, his tolerance, his accommodation, and of course, his respect for people's views, opinions and beliefs.
Right. So talking about these attributes that you just mentioned, not only as his former minister, but his close ally and a friend. And he's used some of these strategies that you talked about, his humility, and of course his tactics of democratic values that he used to ensure cohesion in our society. How did this help him to shape the affairs of the country?
That is very important, because that is why he became, as much as Gambia was one of the smallest, if not the smallest country in Africa, he made Gambia one of the outstanding states in Africa, recognized and respected throughout the world as the country, one of the only countries in Africa that respect human rights, rule of law, and multi-party democracy, and of course, opposition views. Sir Dauda accommodated everybody, irrespective of which tribe you belong to, which family, which creed, and he never discriminated people based on tribe, religion, ethnicity, or area of origin. And this he demonstrated as a president by taking example, people like Honorable A.B. Njai, who was a Banjulian, born and bred in Banjul, took him to Combo North to become the member of parliament for Combo North, where I don't think there is even one village that is, and he took Amankanyi from Jara to be a member of parliament in Kia. When Amankanyi passed away in 1968, he brought H.O. Jani from Hagan Street, 15 Hagan Street, a Banjulian, a Sarahule, to go and be the MP for Kiang West. He brought L.B. Boch from Nyamina to be the member of parliament of Opabadibu Ilyasa. This was what Sir Dauda was doing, was he rated and respected each and every Gambian as a Gambian, irrespective of which area you come from or which tribe you belong to. And this is what helped Gambia to have peace for the 29 years
that he
That's Sir Dauda ruled.
So you talked about, you mentioned something very important, that is the area of politics. How was his relation with other opposition leaders here in the country at the time?
Can you just imagine Sir Dauda appointing the junior brother, the same mother and father with Per Njai, Idi Njai, as Minister of Health Idijai died in an accident at Pirang. And openness and accommodation. Sir Dawda never saw politics as things for enmity or rivalry competition. No, he saw it as all of us are working towards one destiny. That is the destiny of the Gambia, the peace and progress of this country.
Right.
And we can have different views. He accepted it and listens. As I said, I was the leading opposition party leader in this country because he wanted to discuss some issues that touch on the national development of this country.
Right.
He sent me to Hassan Musa Kamara when Hassan Musa Kamara was also a leader of the GPP. They can discuss and make sure they steer this government into a stable and peaceful country.
Right. Honorable, I'll come back to you in a moment. Let me know shift between him and Honorable and some of his professional life. But let's look at his family life. You being a family member, a son of his elder brother, we are discussing some of the attributes that the late elder statesman possess. And key amongst them is the negotiating, doing things at the family level.
Good, thank you. Very good question. But the entire Jawarakunda family at Kabilo, and I would say especially the past 20 years, 15 to 20 years, he was the eldest in our family, and of course he outlived all his siblings, and his demise ended that generation of grandfather's children. And when he proposed marriage, you go to him and he would send a delegation for marriage. And in my case, in fact, he would pay for everything, starting even with the color sent to the bride's home. So he would solve disputes, and you can see his listening ability. That he would listen to it in a way that make any of the disputants feel bad or feel guilty, or perhaps the one that has won the argument, for example, feel, you know. So he teaches difficulty, economic difficulty. He was the go-to guy, if you want to use the word, the term for the family would perhaps be the go-to guy. The family members would use him for different things. Some would use him, like I said, for economic help. Some would use him for comfort. Some would just use him just perhaps to bless your marriage.
Example as the elder in the family at the time.
Exactly, exactly. And if I just may, there is a word in the Quran describing the Kaaba as Allah says, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ, security and peace. He is that for the family.
Right.
You know, he was somebody that you would always go back to, and then you cannot have enough. You just want to go
back and get more.
Feel that warmth, that comfort. Just like after a while, would like to come back to the mother and feel that security, that comfort. So he's used like that for the family. That might be the best thing to say.
All right, Ali, we'll leave it there for now and take a break. We'll look at some of the speeches that the late Sir Dawda has been made here with me, Fatima Sise, and with me here in the studio is Honorable Omar Amadou Jallo, and of course Ali Jawara. Do stay tuned.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Ajata, for inviting me. I would like you to allow me to take this opportunity to extend sincere condolences on behalf of myself and the entire Jajisikunda family in the Gambia, abroad and elsewhere today on the passing of Alhaji Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Also, before I proceed, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mama Chilel Jawara for what she has done, and that goes without saying, but it will have to be said and acknowledged for public consumption. Also, I will have to thank her personally through all these years for making it possible for me to be speaking to Sir Dawda. Virtually every single Saturday, I've been in touch with Sir Dawda. We'll talk, and then he will pray for me, particularly during the critical time when I was very ill. So I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Mama Chilel for that. Jerejef. President Jawara was everything to everybody, particularly the Gambian nation which he led to independence. Having achieved independence, he led the country through very difficult times when there were doubts being expressed that because of our size, stand on our own as an independent country. But Jawara, he drove on and he took the helm. That was Sadauda. And in doing so, he did so with all kinds of human values which reflect our society. Very, very, very skillful. He was very clever. He was very loyal, a very loving person. And
two things were indispensable for him: school and going to the Dara. And you realize that these two had molded Sadauda somehow, because he will explain, for example, in the case of the Dara, how the Dara started first in school, but also you have the traditional Dara, where you have Sering Habib Job teaching him the traditional Dara, but where you also have, how they call it now, somebody who is very conscious of his religion and very conscious of his moral obligations. So yes, the movement from the rural to the urban can have adverse consequences, both in the psychology.
Free and fair elections, and any rejection of our program at any general election would have meant a change of government.
Welcome back to this special edition that is dedicated to remembering Sadauda, live here on GRTS. With me, Fatimata Sise, and with me in the studio is Omar Amadou Jallo, who is one-time Minister of Agriculture under the Sadauda regime, and of course the son of the elder brother of the late Sadauda, Aliu Jawara. He's also here with us, or with me in the studio. Now, Aliu, let's continue talking about who Sadauda was to his family, not only to his immediate family, but to the extended family as well. You've been talking about quite a lot of attributes that made him exceptional and that made the entire family to be always relying on his support and his wisdom when and where the need arises.
That's correct. He was, like I said, he was the go-to guy for the family, for the entire family, especially in the past 15 to 20 years. You know, whenever there is a family member who is in a crisis or needs in a crisis with another family member, they would just go to him to counsel and solve the dispute, or pay for the entire bride money, including even the coronates that's taken to the bride. So he was that for our family, and we'd always go to the Quran to describe, to show similarities to the Kaaba, what the Kaaba is for the believers, as it is, God says it is a sanctuary, a place that you will love to visit over and over and over again. That is Mathaba, and they explain it, they describe it as a baby camel would go out to play, but after a while would come back to the mother and feel security and feel warmth and feel as you can. If you cannot go, you would call. And he was doing the same thing too. He would call. And I remembered when the biggest tragedy somebody would suffer is the death of your daughter or son. And he suffered this because his daughter Nasise passed away, in fact consoling the rest of the family that death is predestined and it will come at a time when you cannot change it, you cannot move it. He says when it's time for prayer, you can change it, you can move it, you can pray later. But when it's death, it comes at a time that
all these attributes you just mentioned.
He is a complete human being. That's how we describe him. And in fact, what happened, another tragedy that happened during his presidency was the helicopter Abin Jai, who died in that crash. You know, again, he was that figure, that demeanor that would calm.
Honorable, during Jawahar's presidency, in fact, after his presidency, many people have been talking about his quest to foster relations between the Gambia and other countries. In short, we can talk about the foreign policy secretary used at the time as a chief negotiator to ensure lasting peace in other parts of the country, for instance, in the Middle East.
Yes, I think Sir Dawda was, as he said, a gift from God, not only to the Gambia, but to the sub-region. Because I have witnessed myself for him going to Sierra Leone and Liberia and negotiating peace between the two countries when they wanted to go on war, to make sure there is peace among them. And then Ivory Coast and Benin, he negotiated it. And not only that, but the Iran-Iraq war.
Right.
Fortunately, he died before even their first meeting. And unanimously, the UN accepted that Sir Dawda, who was the deputy chair, should lead. And he was the one who took it upon himself. That he did was to establish ECOMOG.
He was behind that.
He held the meeting here in Gambia. Unfortunately, I was the one who was responsible for the delegation of Ghana, because I was involved in the organization. People were dying. And not only that, but thousands and thousands of people came to this country from Liberia. And Sir Dawda took it upon himself to help them to make sure, or to the United States, to pursue a new life, particularly a life in education or some other program.
Just how instrumental he was in these processes and how people were listening and what made them to listen to him at the time.
Because one thing, he was a champion of democracy and respect for human rights. Because we Africans, I even say today, and the suffering of the black person. Therefore, he always emphasized the fact that we should not have independence to continue for our people to live under the suppression and repression of the white people. He said it not once, not twice, not 3 times. That is why all the countries around here, from Guinea, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, Liberia, Sierra Leone, they all came to Gambia. And Sir Dawda tolerated everybody as an African, as a human being. That was one of the standing attributes he has, that the world respected him. That is why in 1975, at the OAU conference in Kampala, Rights Commission, and he was able to convince his colleagues, the heads of states at the OAU summit, to establish it. But which country was more qualified to host it? There was no question asked. It was Gambia.
Ali, we just had Honorable talk extensively on what the late Sir Dawda had done within this appreciating delegations to end now, to put a truce to that. So let's look at all these tactics that the late means of resolving issues. How can we put this together, looking at the lives and time of Sir Dawda here in the Gambia?
You see, and one thing I want to mention, I want people to appreciate, is that give your children good name, because that name that you name your children will be their characteristic, you know. So he was given name Kairaba, which is great peace, and there was no surprise that it was during his chairmanship. He was good omen, and he brought peace in Liberia, and Gambia became a safe haven. Has emotions that are calm, that are not, he's not hyper, he's not too high on emotions, and he's not never too low. And this is very important for a leader. And there is every prophet, there is never a prophet that has never been a herdsman, you know, rearer of cattle or sheep. And his early life, his early professional life, he was a veterinary surgeon. So he had to deal with animals at that level, you know, and this gives you, that trains you and trains any leader to have this forbearing attitude that he has. And that was an eternal, that was a divine guidance for him.
For him, absolutely. We will talk about that profession he held for that over the past decades. We will look at that briefly with Honorable OJ. But first, before we take a look at that, let's examine the former President Jawara's Gambianization scheme. At the time, he had tried to decentralize structures across the country, paying specific focus on rural Gambia. Tell us a little bit about this. How did he go about this venture?
I think one of his success story was to try to develop the rural area. And I think, with your permission, one of the characteristics that we have not mentioned yet is honesty. Sir Dawda was president for 29 years. Can you compare Barajali and Kanilai? No. Nor has he ever made it a family business. That's why when I was making the eulogy at the parliament, I said, let somebody tell me one of his children whom Sir Dawda appointed in the 29 years as president. It doesn't exist. He only built 2 homes in 29 years. Wellington Street and Fajara. I was the one who used to send to the banks to take the loans. The compound he has in Banyulundi, he got it in 1956. Interference of the eldest sister Nasise, who settled in Birkama with the husband who was a Mauritanian. And Sir Dawda used to go on holidays to the sister and the husband when they were doing business in Buyam. So I would say he was one of the most honest leaders Africa has ever had. So that we will move away from personalizing leaderships, where leaders I've seen in Africa up to today, children of presidents being made ministers, being a wife being with a minister and a vice president, etc., etc. The glorification of leaders is what tantamounts to the degradation of Africa and the backwardness of Africa up to today. And Sir Dawda avoided this.
So let's still stay with his rural efforts during his regime. Why was this crucial in his quest, or as a president of the Republic of the Gambia, to ensure that everything that was within the Greater Banjul area was also found in hinterland?
Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara was born in the rural areas, but was lucky that one of his father's best friends, Alaji Yoma Jalo, who was also trading near Barajeli at that time, requested Sir Dawda to come and stay with him in Banjul, and he took him to Mohammedan school. That's how he started his Western education. So when he became president, he gave priority. That is why he built 22 senior health centers throughout the Gambia. He expanded the Basse Hospital. He expanded Bansang Hospital and even created a nursing school in Bansang instead of only having a nursing school in Banjul. In agriculture, he doesn't only approve and try to make progress in groundnut, which was our main project, but he brought diversification into rice, horticulture, and cotton, meth. Like the World Bank project in Sankule Kunda, the rice project. Jahal, it was his father who owned that farmland. But Sir Dawda opted and convinced the family that they should hand it over to the Gambia so that it will be a World Bank project, the Jahali Pachar. Then we have the lowland tip of Gambia, but to the west. And then in cotton, we became the second biggest producer of cotton after Mali in West Africa. And we had the best ginnery in West Africa in Basse. And then he asked us to promote horticulture. That horticulture became one of the main attributes of women development. That we were exporting 90 tons of horticultural produce every Thursday to England. 90 tons.
And those produce would include
all this money was going into the pockets of women in this country. Then he emphasized, as a veterinarian, that livestock development should take priority.
All right, Honorable, we will talk about that in a moment. But Aliu, Honorable had made very important points here, and he talked about Barajali, and that's the birthplace of the former president. It's underdeveloped, and it's evident to everybody that the former president did not invest that much in the home state. You being the son, not the biological, but the elder son, or the son of his elder brother, what lessons do you learn from this? The president at the time had everything at his disposal, economic and otherwise, that he could have developed Barajali to a level that could suit him and other people. But he did not do that. What lesson do you derive from that?
Yeah, interesting. Because one of my cousins was actually, we're having a conversation just like this, and that brought, that issue was raised. Barajali is really underdeveloped, you know, so he did according to his means. You know, Barajali today has continuous running water from solar powered running water and electricity from his pocket, which he did only back in 2012, I think. 2012, yes, and from his own pockets. Before that, there was nothing. Ages away from Barajali, but he didn't, of course, go take it all to Barajali. But today, Barajali has running water and electricity from the pockets of Sir Dawda. And he teaches this to us, that there are no shortcuts in life. You got to do it the right way. And you cannot just come to him and negotiate scholarship, you know, just through the back way. You just have to earn it. You know, he believes that whatever life has to offer has to be earned, and there are no shortcuts.
All right, that was the late Sadada for you there, live from Banjul. You won a momentous 3 decades of democracy that set the tone for our current political culture. Well, the elder statesman, who was a towering figure in regional politics and international relations, died exactly 1 year ago, last year, on August 27, 2019. Well, let's take a further, because the Gambia has been the human rights capital of the continent for many years, largely due to Sadada's dedication to democracy and the individual rights. Coercion and persecution has never had a way part in Jawa's admission from the late Sadada. And we're looking at his human rights records here, and we've mentioned that persecution and all the issues were never part of his regime at the time. How did he?
Injustice. It was part of his strongest characteristics. And he believed that the same right that he has, every Gambian has that same right. That is why those who are opposing him, those are writing things about him, he continues doing what he thinks is right. Because he knows he's human, those people are human, and of course also, as a politician and as a leader, if you don't welcome and accommodate criticism, you will never everybody. And he welcomed everybody, and he has tolerance for those who were going against him, because he knows. Because I can remember at one time, he came to Serekunda, and somebody threw sand on him, the United Party. But do you know what Sadawda did? When the police rushed, he stopped them. He said, no, leave him.
And he was president at the time?
That's right. He said he's crazy. Because the moment you do to him something to him, they will talk about what I did to him and not what he did to me. Gambians are like that.
All right.
Free and fair elections, and any rejection of our program at any general election would have meant a change of government. Free and fair elections, and any rejection of free and fair elections, and any rejection of our program at any general election would have meant a change of government.
Bela Manzosa Dauda, Bancola Denguma, Anala Bango Sundela.
Free and fair elections, and any rejection of a
Thank you very much. Mr. Aziz, Associate President from Pakistan. Excellency the Minister. Mr. Ambassador, what is it?
In the Sahel, our main problem is agriculture. And why is it such a special problem? We depend primarily on agriculture, and yet the most important thing for us, for any farmer, is lacking in our area. We are short of water, unreliable rainfall, and not enough technology to utilize the existing water resources.
Economist, Mr. Benjamin, Assistant Head of Project Department.
Democracy, human rights, and respect for law and common democracy. West Lord Nefamba, Green PPP Party of Katako Gamiban Bodeka. Adum Sengo Sempana, Abukatu Black, if I will have my evolution, who called the evolution. Adum Nagano Karen Alcaote, Monajitu Minganawaki, and Nadula Jamalema, Secretary of War and Kentakon. Damiano, tomorrow, Limpo, Alinga, getting. I want to put the credit. More majority time in local magistrate. And this sample of Dolgilo. Mumana sample. During the referendum by the 1965. Muna referendum in 1965. More in Mayanako. Yamira, Dolby and Molly Okalamdo. Maybe you reach the point of people of Hamilton Seneca. Yanta majority Sivan and Sarulanem with 2,000 majority. Majority be what happening on the way 2,000 majority. Yellow majority ballot. I'm going to run majority Bumaka. But it mattered, that's all the money in the room. Why man can I go to it? Molly Monaco. You need you are. You can't afford the Republic. You are your problem in the Republic. For falling at the back.
Kairo Doma, Bela Manzosa Dauda, Bancola Denguma, Anala Bango Sundela.
free and
Welcome back to this special edition of Remembering the Late Sir Dauda, and it's coming to you live from GRTS. Here with me, Fatma Sise. With me in the studio is Honorable Amadou Diallo, a former one-time agriculture minister under the Sir Dauda regime, and of course the son of the late former president's elder brother Aliou Jawara. He is also here with me in the studio. We are also expecting Hassan Sise, a renowned historian here in the Gambia and the head of the National Arts Center for Arts and Culture, to join us in a moment to look at the historical perspective of the regime of the late Sir Dauda before independence and after independence. Of course, we will continue our discussion here with Honorable here. We will be looking at the human rights records of the late former president. It's compared to none, many would say, and I've been asking you this question, why would they say that? Why were people not persecuted at the time compared to the previous regimes we had?
Sir Dauda believed that you can only prosecute a person when that person has been accused of a crime, but not because he has made a statement against the president. He has a right. Is it rightful? That is why, and one of his outstanding characteristics was when there were 3 people who were members of parliament. One of them was even a minister. They made some criminal activities here. The minister was a member of the PPP and a member of parliament. The other man was a member of parliament of Wuli. And the one was a member of parliament for Fulham. He allowed the courts to take place and they were all sentenced. He didn't interfere because he believes in the independence of the judiciary.
So we're talking about competent courts at the time.
Competent courts at that time. That is why during the time of Sadado, you will never ever hear that somebody who is in the opposition has left this country because he was afraid of his life.
People were not exiled at the time?
No way. Nobody has ever gone. Even nobody need to go on exile because his foreign policy was so successful that Sadauda was internationally renowned and respected that some countries, because of his personality, decided that you don't need a visa to go to their country if you are a Gambian. And it was only for Gambia in West Africa. To Norway, no visa. To Sweden, to Denmark, to Britain, you don't need a visa. And to America, just buy your air ticket and go to the embassy, and you will be given. And then during Sadauda's time, not one Gambian has died crossing the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, or the Sahara, saying that you are going on back way. Because he made sure he developed agriculture so much so that our farmers became lords of farmers. I said lord of farmers because if farmers can leave Senegal, Guinea-Conakry, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, and Mali, and come and be strange farmers, what they call surga, under our own farmers, then our farmers were far better economically to take care of them, thanks to Sadauda. And their children were benefiting. That is why you can see that all those going through the back way, 90% of them are children of farmers.
Sadauda on Rebel in a moment, and how the Gambia was before independence and after independence, some of the structures that have been brought about the late Sadauda and development perspectives in a moment. But Aliou, let's look at the late Sadauda. How has his life taught about humanity and serving your people honorably?
Actually he installed himself as the chairman of the Special Committee on Agriculture at the National Assembly.
That's right.
Back then.
So do we know why he would do that at the time?
Because he loved agriculture so much and he cared for it so much and knows that it is the economic backbone of the country. You see, and remember he had the preparation as a veterinarian, which is part of agriculture, and he cared so much for it towards the end of his life when he couldn't travel anymore. When I was, when I traveled from Canada and I want to go to the kind of things are you interested in? Just look for farming and farmers, what they do, and take pictures if you can. And he would tell me this when I'm going. And he cared so much.
He was still passionate about agriculture even after his retirement.
Very passionate. And one thing that happened August 27, 2019, which also coincided with the Musik, and we had the biggest rain that year. And of course, while his soul is ascending, and we believe in our faith that there is communication with the angels. What do you imagine he would tell the angels? Take care of my people, the farmers, because he loved them so much. And what do they love? Rain.
So that was his life, and reason why I ask, how has his life taught about humanity and honorably served?
Don't be drunk with power.
Right.
President definitely is the most powerful person in the country, but he doesn't see it like that. And when you come to him in a gathering, you just see him as any ordinary person. And even if you look at the stage, when they sit on the stage at the Independence or wherever, he sits on the same chair that everybody else sits on. Unlike his successor, who
that's how much he brings himself down to the people.
Yes, he's down to earth. Right. And when you visit him at his farm, is it Sadauda or is it that boy over there? He would do whatever he could at the farm. Right. And when he is wrong, like OJ said, he's human, and he knows that. He doesn't hesitate to take his hat off and beg for your pardon, because he felt that he wronged you. And when you discussing with him, and which I did often, especially towards the end of his life, and I'd like to talk about that, because I was there to the very end in his grave. But when we're discussing about the Quran and stuff, which I have a lot of interest in, he has his points of view, and you can exchange ideas. And one sign of an intelligent person is that when he sees, he's not in an argument or in a discussion to win the debate, but he is in it to seek the truth. And when he sees your point, he doesn't waste any time. He says, wait a minute, I saw your point. You see, you are right. And he doesn't see himself as, you know what, I know it all. This is all his humanity and his family life. For example, one day I walked into his office. This should have been maybe about 8 years ago, maybe 6 years before his death, 7 years before his death. You know, one of his sons, which he named after my father, Basadi, whose real name is Mustafa, you know, he came and I walked in, he says, oh, you came at the right time. And you always come in at the right time for him. You know, he never tells you, you know what, this is the wrong time. You know, he came and, you know, he didn't send a servant or he didn't send me, which he could have, of course, but he went himself and he took me with him and, you know, he wrote very nice, sweet words to his son. This is how human he was.
Right, Aliu and Honorable, earlier we spoke with Jawara's former Secretary General and the Gambian technocrat at the time who has been looking at all the issues or how he has been working with the late Sir Dauda at the time. And let's go with this piece, and when we come back the program will continue. Do stay tuned.
It's getting hot.
Yeah.
Free and fair elections, and any rejection of our program at any general election would have meant a change of government.
Welcome back to this special edition of Remembering Sir Dauda, coming to you live from GRTS. Here with me, Fatima Tassise. With me in the studio is OJ Jal and of course Aliu Jawara to talk about the life and time of the late elder statesman. Now I'll come back to you, Honorable. We are looking at the human rights record of the former president, but that was not all of state in the world, and of course that was part of his professional life as a veterinary surgeon for a moment, and of course he proceeded to becoming the president of the country. So in those days of high political fever driving the independence movement across Africa, it's indeed interesting that we had a president of that nature who had that profession. And in fact, you talked about the fact that he was passionate about being a veterinarian until his retirement. Talk to us about this.
Yes, you allow me also, because Aliu have talked about his passion. A movement that I worked for 7 years before joining politics. And I know what corporate is all about. But when Sir Dauda came, he strengthened this institution and made sure farmers were getting assistance through this institution in terms of equipment, implements, fertilizer, even money, so that they will not be charged interest. And then you go and sell your nuts until some of the societies build their own consumer shops. But unfortunately, after the coup, the first institution to be destroyed was the cooperative societies. And I can remember in 1985, at the height of the drought, Sir Dauda made a personal declaration, executive powers, writing of $85 million is owed by farmers that they should not pay. Government will take it over. That time, so
what were the cooperatives for?
Supplements, fertilizer, seeds, etc., and money, so that they can develop their farms. That is why Gambia started buying in 1993, when I was Minister of Agriculture the last year, 260,000 tons of nuts. But we can see in 2015, Gambia could only buy 40,000 tons of nuts. That is a direct reflection of the poverty of the farming community. Apart from, for the last 10 years, 15 years, for the last 15 years, even the livestock marketing which I introduced, the livestock Tobaski show, which the government, through Sir Dauda's efforts and encouragement, make sure we establish 150 women's groups in this country. And each group, Sir Dauda made us through his assistance and the respect they have the entire committee, each group will be giving 30 sheep free of charge and $30,000 so that they will breed it for those who are going to be their watchmen. And then so that we can discourage Gambians going to Mali and Senegal and other countries to buy this sheep. But the moment he was overthrown, it stopped. These are all some things that really affected rural development.
So let's look at his life as a veterinary personnel and the president at the time. It was remarkable to have such a person at the time.
He was still interested. That is why there are two villages where Sadauda used, and one fuller village is Valley village where Paul Balde came from. He said Paul Balde, who was the first person he appointed as Minister of Education. Unfortunately, this Paul Balde taught me in St. Augustine in Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3 before he went into politics. So Sadauda said these two people, the father of Paul Balde, and to check animals and to inject animals. And even as president, he goes to these villages, and I can see he even accepts to take lunch in these villages. As he said, he was so down to earth that he can eat with anybody in a crowd. And he loved agriculture. That is why during his time, agriculture, we were producing tent. Because all those projects were destroyed.
So, Aliu, quickly let's talk about the late Sadauda's attributes one more time. Like you said, he's so down to earth that he would come down to the level of everybody, especially at the family level, to talk about, he has been discussing with you or other family members as to how he felt the country could be governed to a level that the development aspirations of every Gambian would be realized, or the government would be realized, or whether he's been told.
He knew that his legacy would live on forever, and because he earned it, you know, you have to earn. Like I said before, he believes in the fact that whatever you get, you have to earn it. You cannot. There is no shortcut. There is no back way, and he truly believes that, even including his legacy, and he knew that it would be intact, and for years to come, for generations to come, and see it, and you know, and OJ mentioned about insults. There was an occasion when somebody, a family member, I'm going to reserve his name, told him that, you know what, it is embarrassing and it's hurtful that we see everywhere that you're getting insulted, and you have to do something about this.
What was his response?
And he says, absolutely, I just have to step down from the presidency.
Correct.
This is the only way I can stop it. He said, no, we want you there. We want you there as president. He says, well,
that's right.
Unfortunately, that goes with insults. So you can't have your cake and eat it. And, you know, so, and these are some of the things that he really believes in. And he was special. He was,
honestly.
He was a special human being.
So, Honorable, let's talk about democracy in the Gambia. At a time, if you look at history, there were many states were a single party at the time, and many of the countries were moving towards dictatorship. But he encouraged multi-party system here in the country. How much do we credit him for this?
I think not only Gambians should credit him for that, but the whole of Africa. For 27 years at that time. 1992, PPP lost some of our major seats. We lost Lower Nyomi, Tali Bensouda. We lost Fuladu, who was the MP there. His elder brother, Aliu's elder brother, Keba Jawara. He lost it. One of our most vibrant and strong members of parliament, MC Cham, lost to Manna. Of course, this Kutisanya lost. Our MP, our candidate, lost to Wajuara. But Sadauda accept these things. Serekunda West, we lost. Jahumpa lost Banjul South. And these are very important personalities within the PPP. But as I tell you, Sadauda's elections were free, fair, and transparent. and he will never ever interfere in these things.
Right.
That is why he was gifted, believes in is to make sure that justice and fair play prevails in anything that he's doing.
All right. So let's look at his development aspirations here in the country. What many would say is the younger generation do not know Sada that much. And reason why, a lot of comments such as he did not develop the Gambia, he did not do much for his people, and the former president, in being there with him in the onset. Talk us through where he took the Gambia from until his retirement from presidency.
That's right. Thank you very much. This is very important. I will first and foremost talk about the last point you brought, corruption. He set up a commission, the Bamfo Commission, under decree number 11. And the decree stated categorically in black and white that the commission will sit in public and the report will be made public. And it would have been that the report of that commission only would have justified the accusation of Yahya Jammeh. Is it that all the other reports, commission reports, were made public except that one, because it was all lies. And I still say I am ready to challenge anybody who accused Sir Dawda and his government of rampant corruption. I think this was ignorance and people's image of just in Banjul alone. When you are now entering Banjul, the courthouses on the left were all built by Sir Dawda. The Hagan Street Clinic was built by Sir Dawda. The maternity wing of the RVH was built by Sir Dawda. The Chirland wing behind the RVH was built by Sir Dawda. The developments at the Makati Square was built by Sir Dawda. The Albert Market was built by Sir Dawda. And of course, the ministries were built. Of course, the sewage system, before Sir Dawda came into being, Banjul only have potikamas. When you have the depots, I don't know whether you know that.
No, I wouldn't.
They come in the morning to take these buckets from the homes in which they have already used to ease themselves, go and clean it, throw it away, clean it and bring it back. There was not one flush toilet. Sir Dawda introduced the sewage system and make sure homes can have their own flush operation. The port authority, the ferry services. He created Gamtel. He created Gamworks. He created the Gambia Public Transport Corporation, whereby even Koina had public transport at that time. And all the parastatals presently in Gambia were created by Sir Dawda. And these are the biggest employees of Gambian citizens. And then he was the one, during his time when he became president, when you are going to Basse, it takes you 3 days. He built the present dual carriageway from Banjul to Yundu and extended to a dual carriageway to Basse. There was a ferry at Pakaliba, which closes at 7. And he built the Same Bridge also to link Same and Sandu. And he built all these bridges, and then the most importantly, he brought down the Jahali Konko. Jahali Konko. Jahali Hill is Konko. How many people died on that hill? Because the vehicles cannot go up that hill. So many people died. Lunch in Basse and your dinner in Serekunda again. Thanks to Sir Dawda. And then he introduced the feeder road project, whereby every corner of the Gambia had feeder roads, whereby buses go there and all the vehicles.
So in essence, we are saying all the development projects, when it focused in the Greater Banjul area, and Banjul to be specific, like many would say.
No, it was not. He was building everywhere. That is why I said he built 26 big health centers. And then he had a very good relation with the Chinese. And the Chinese sent a medical team here that every medical center in Gambia had a Chinese doctor, qualified doctor, to take care of the medical center. When he was taking, there were only 3 high schools in Gambia. But when the coup was taking place, there were 430 high schools. And then not only that, Sir Dawda, because of his wisdom, had a cooperation with all the mission schools to encourage them into development, and he made sure the Gambia government pays all the salary of the teachers in the mission schools, because they were, he said, they were partners in development. Why should people forget about this? So that's why when I hear people saying he has not done anything, I don't blame them. They are too young, or they are ignorant of what was happening. Siri Shekuba Sise, as one of very good ministers of finances, can develop this country and make sure our economy grow to a state where the IMF and the World Bank asked the Gambia, the only English-speaking country in West Africa, to revalue our currency. Not devalue it, but to revalue it. And of course, also to make Gambia an economic, how do you call it, an economic zone, whereby all these countries around us call to buy things here. So we became the supermarket of the West Coast. Therefore, that is why one of our main foreign exchange honor was the trans-country trade.
Right.
When he was campaigning Abdou Diouf, one of his main statements was, how can Senegal agree for small Gambia, poor Gambia, to be feeding Senegal? Thanks to Sadao.
We will come back to that. That's very interesting. If Gambia, with its size at the time, could be feeding a nation like Senegal and all them exile in return from UK, what was he focusing on prior to his demise?
Yes, he felt that 29 years of leadership of this country as Prime Minister and President, and even before that as Minister of Education, and even before, you know, he felt to have more family life, to have, you know, more time for family. And he wanted to make up for that. That was definitely one of the things that he wanted to make up for lost time. And he would travel to visit to Bansang to visit one of his brothers. He would travel to Kuntaur, to Brikama, to Barajali. He would do that often. And he was trying to make up for lost time. And he had open door. Like I said, whenever you come, for some reason you tell you came at the perfect time. You know, it's almost lunch. Or you came at perfect time. Let's go do this.
Right.
You came at perfect time. So he was...
So what else was he focusing on? We understand when the lost time during his presidency.
Yeah, I would say mending actually, but improving definitely.
Yes, okay.
And his religion and religiosity was very important, was very crucial to him. And he did that to the very last value to develop the younger generation.
Right.
And he doesn't hesitate. I have an orphanage, and he would take it upon himself to come and visit, and then he would invite them over and to talk to them, to see, because he says these are the future generation. He still believes. He Quran on the 21st of January 2017. In fact, I posted it on Facebook today, and he said this is the time that we can celebrate. You know, so it is only God that lifted this from us. We couldn't have done it ourselves. So, and then he just believes in developing younger generations for the future. And whatever he did and whatever developments he did.
So he's forgiving, someone who is forgiving based on what has been discussed here. Tell us whether at any point he felt bitter being exiled when he returned back to the country.
He didn't. He is not bitter. He didn't hold anything. There is no receptacle for him for bitterness in his heart. And this was another thing that he tries to inculcate into the hearts of everybody that that he associated with him. You know, if he sees somebody wrongs somebody else, you know, he doesn't believe in revenge. You know, he tells you to just bring him closer. And I'm not going to mention the name of a family member who kind of rebelled, but, you know, we would think that he would say, you know what, you're a rebel, you are the prodigal son, or what. You know, whatever you're doing can be done outside, but come and join us for our family gatherings, or for dinner. And he's not bitter at all. And one secret for long life is never to hold grudge.
A video or a clip on Fode Jajisi where he's been talking about his relation with Sadauda and professional life. But first, I will come back to you, Honorable, before we take a look at that piece. You mentioned a very important point here, and those are the viable initiatives at the time that President Jawara and his assistants were utilizing that made other countries to envy the Jawara have been adopting at the time that made this so successful.
One of the most important strategies was Sadauda makes sure that the civil service has never ever been politicized. And he emphasized it to all of us ministers that we as politicians are the policy makers, but the implementers of that policy. Nobody has ever seen any Secretary General of Sadauda in a PPP platform with him. Nobody has ever seen my 13.5 years as minister. Nobody has seen any of my permanent secretaries or officers to be in a part, because he believed that the civil service was there to serve a government. And then governments go, government comes. Service, it came to a time when people from Tanzania, from other countries in East Africa, from Nigeria, were sent to Gambia to understudy our civil service. And that is why I said he was successful in a lot of ways, not only in his political ideology, but only in his implementation of project ideology. That is why he believed that I come Salikenye, and we studied in Ghana together as the project manager at Sankulekunda. And some people, none of them start complaining to Sadauda. Sadauda said, Omar, you hear what they are saying? Farm to help, but they stopped it because you are PPP and took it to somebody who is NCP. Come and take the microphone. Nobody got up. And then I turned and said, please, Sadauda, can you allow me to speak? He said, yes. Icham was UP, who is now a minister. That man sitting there, MC Jallo, he was a UP, he's now a minister. The vice president, Asanusa Kamara, was a UP of PS Njai. His wife is the daughter of PS Njai, and his wife is the permanent secretary at the PMO. He's the head of all the civil service in the Gambia.
You're talking about strong opponents of Sadauda at the time.
So that's what I said. I am a disciple of Sadauda. I will appoint people not based on politics, but on qualification and capability.
Technocrat at the time, yes, who has been talking about all the issues, and he is 4-day charges on the elder statesman's commitment to unity and regional integration. If that people will continue, do stay tuned.
But Sadauda fought and achieved independence with other Gambians. And when we achieved independence, he tried to make sure that major projects, minor projects are spread evenly as much as possible over the country. And in that respect, people felt that did what he was. Sadauda is gone. I think this is the most appropriate time, seriously. I'm saying this and I don't want to be controversial, but it is a fact that since Sadauda left government after the treason in 1994, we as a country and as a nation have never been peaceful. So it is a massive and monumental challenge for us. Was deliberate and wanting destruction. It is easy to do that and a monumental task to repair it. And we owe it to him. We owe it to him to repair this and to continue to uphold and sustain the legacy, his legacy, which should be peace, progress, and prosperity for everybody in the country. Sadauda was a gentleman. He was a person who believed in community.
Free and fair elections, and any rejection of
General under the Sadauda Karaba regime, talking about the late elder statesman there. And Honorable, he mentioned, how was Sadauda looking at this when you talk about a strong and independent country?
Yes, I think Sadauda proved the colonialists very wrong, particularly the French and the British. Because when Sadauda was chosen to lead the People's Progressive Party in 1959, there were already 3 existing parties. The Democratic Party, headed by Reverend J.C. Faye.
Okay.
And then the United Party, headed by P.S. Njai. and the Congress Party. Gambia, because of our size and our non-existence of resources, cannot stand on its own as an independent sovereign state. Sadauda refuted it, and we lost one of our strongest party supporters at that. But Sadauda maintained his position. The document for the elections was for Gambia, Gambia independent today, was written in Nigeria.
Right.
So when he came, he maintained that position, and at the end of the day, before the Lancaster House conference, he was able to convince M. Gaba Jahumpa and J.C. Faye for them to come together and form the PPP, the Prime Minister. And then in 1970, that is one point that everybody should be told, because of Sadauda's believed in justice and the rule of law.
Okay.
In 1970, in 1965, we went to elections to be a republic also. But unfortunately, we were lost by less than 2,000.
Okay.
Then people called a meeting at Faraba, tried to force him to move to be president. And he said, if you want to force me, the people have not approved our proposal. Although it is, the margin is very small, it's less than 1%. But as long as we have not reached the legal limit, we should not accept it.
Absolutely, all right. So, Honorable, quickly, we are running completely out of time. But before I let you go, has the legacy of Sadauda in any way positioned Gambia at any level in the global scene?
Human and People's Rights Commission headquarters is in Gambia, and this will be here forever. And I am happy also, and I am happy with the president, H.E. Adama Barrow, that they have now got money to come and escort. There is a mission of Kwame Nkrumah in China, for Mao Zedong, in North Korea, for Kim Il-sung. Why should we Africans not be recognizing the president of the country, Adama Barrow, and also to thank him for the fitting and state burial he gave Sadauda last year, 1 year ago. And of course, the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, and all the members of Parliament, and all the party leaders, and all people, the mayors, the mayor, and all for the cooperation and the support they gave for this burial of Sadauda on that day. It's a reflection of that Gambians knew that Sadauda was a Gambian and sees Gambia as one nation, one people with one destiny, irrespective of all the imams, as long as tomorrow is our Tamharet.
Yes.
So that all imams and all religious leaders to please pray for Sadauda, for God's forgiving, and so that he will be made to the highest place of Jannatul Firdaus.
All right,
Thank you very much.
All right, quickly, Ali, how would you want us to remember Sadauda? Quickly, in a minute, we are done.
You know what? His life, he ended his life on his bed, reciting every day, over and over, Ayatul Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum, and he would recite, Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. He recited that every day, and I was honored to be one of those that buried him, and it was the most complete and most honorable feelings that I ever experienced in my life.
All right. Aliu, thank you so much. And of GRTS, Aliu is the son of the elder brother of the former president, Sadauda Karaba Jawara. And of course, Omar Ahmadu Jallow, who was one-time agriculture minister under the Jawara regime. And thank you so much for being here with me. Of course, we will continue a blessed day, and do stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our program at any general election would have meant a change of government.